Brachos Daf Mem Gimel discusses the halachos of one person saying a bracha for everybody else at a meal if they are drinking wine, saying the hagafen. It also talks about the bracha in the middle of the meal and the bracha at the end of the meal on wine. It talks about who should be the one to say the bracha for everybody, and then the Gemara moves on to hilchos brachos on things that smell good. It talks about when to say the bracha on something that smells good, the different types of brachos on smells, on aromas, and then it talks about the order in which you should be saying the brachos if you have multiple brachos on scents. Along the way, the Gemara mentions brachos elanos and a number of other agadah statements from people who have said other things relevant to the daf. So let us begin the Gemara. We had seen in our Mishnah that if you have a number of people reclining together and eating bread, one person should say the bracha for everybody. So the Gemara wants to know, what about if people are together and they are drinking wine? Should one person say the bracha for everybody? How does wine relate? So the Gemara quotes the machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon says wine is just like bread. Just like bread, if you're reclining together, but Heseba, one person says the bracha for everybody, but if they're sitting together, then everybody says their own bracha. Same thing applies to wine. Now Rav argues. Rav says that wine is different, and the Gemara is not sure. There's two versions as to what Rav held. According to one version, Rav held that everybody can have one person say the bracha for everybody, even if they're sitting together and not reclining. The other version of Rav is that he said no. Even if everybody's reclined together, still everybody has to say their own bracha on wine. Wine, you cannot have one person saying one bracha for everybody under any circumstance, right? In the first option, Rav is more makel on wine than bread, and the second, he's more machmir on wine than bread. Okay, so now the Gemara attempts to prove one way or the other from the following brisa, which describes how meals used to work. So brisa says as follows: if you had a meal in the home of a wealthy man, and he invited a lot of poor people there, so it took a while for everybody to come in and settle down. So first the people would come in and they would sit on chairs waiting for everybody to come, and they would drink wine. So they would wash one hand, that would be the hand that held the glass, and they would hold the glass, and they would sit together, and while they're sitting together, everybody would say their own bracha on the wine. Important statement here, they're sitting together, everybody says their own bracha on the wine. Next, once everybody was there, they would move up to the couches where they would recline, they would wash both hands, and one person would say the bracha for everybody. Again, here, it's one person saying the bracha for everybody. So, the Gemara says, we have a kasha on both lashonos. Here you see that when they were sitting together, everybody said their own bracha. When they were reclining together, each person were yotzei, everybody was yotzei with one person's bracha, and this is on wine. Now, this brisa seems to describe wine exactly the same as our Mishnah describes bread. When they're sitting together, everybody says their own bracha, and when they're reclining together, one person says the bracha for everybody. So how is Rav going to understand this? So the Gemara says each version of Rav will have to understand this separately. The first version of Rav that said when you're sitting together, if it's wine, everybody could have one person say the bracha for everybody. So I have to say that this is different, because these people are guests, and the guests don't make their own rules, and therefore they're not really settled together, they're moving, so you can't have everybody be yotze with one person, everybody has to say their own bracha, even though normally in a wine meal you could do that. Now, according to the second version of Rav, the problem is, how come when they were reclining, one person could say the bracha for everybody? The second version of Rav said that's only bread, but by wine everybody has to say their own bracha, even if they are reclining. The Gemara says that this is different over here, because they're also eating bread together. It's not just wine, it's connected to a bread meal. So they're reclining together and having bread, therefore they could have one person say the bracha for everybody, even on the wine. Now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that if wine was brought in the middle of the bread part of the meal, in the middle of the mazain, everybody says their own bracha, and if it's brought at the end of the meal, then one person says the bracha for everybody. So one wants to know why. The Gemara says they asked this question to Ben Zayman. He said, simple. When it's in the middle of the meal and everybody's busy eating, they can't stop and pay attention to one person who's going to say the bracha. Therefore, everyone should say their own bracha. At the end of the meal, nobody's busy eating. Everybody could listen to the bracha from one person. Okay, the next thing the Mishnah had said was that the person who says the bracha for everybody should also be the one to say the bracha on the aromatic herbs that they bring for everybody to smell at the end of the meal. The Gemara says, why, what's the chiddush over here? Why should I think somebody else would say it? The Gemara says, because there really is somebody who should be saying it, and that's the person who washed his hands for Mayim Acharonim, which come after the meal, The one who washes hands first should really be the one to lead everybody in the bracha. And this supports the statement of Rav. Rashi said in his name that's the person who should be the one to say the bracha, the one who washes first. Mar quotes an incident. Rav and Rabbi Chi were sitting together at a meal in the house of Rebbe. And Rebbe said to Rav, "Get up, wash your hands." So Rabbi Chi saw that Rav was nervous. He thought maybe I did something wrong. Maybe my hands were dirty. Maybe I was eating too much, that he's yelling at me. I should go wash. So Rabbi Chi said, "No, you're a great man. You're the son of great people. He's honoring you with leading the benching. By telling you to wash first, he's honoring you with leading the benching." Okay, from here to the end of the daf, the Gemara discusses primarily the halachos that we say on things which have a good scent. The Gemara first begins with when do you say the bracha on it. So at the end of the meal, they used to burn some scented plants, and the Gemara wants to know when do you say the bracha on it. So Rav Zera says the name of Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah from the time that the smoke starts to rise, even before you smell it. Rabbi Zera said back to Rav Bar Yirmiyah, how could you say the bracha before you smelled it? So he said, I understand you. When you eat bread, you say the bracha before you ate it, right? So you could say the bracha because you're planning on eating it soon. So here too, you could say the bracha because you're about to smell it. Okay, now the Gemara discusses what bracha you say on various different scented things, different objects, different plants, the woody plants, the grassy plants, the oil, the fruits. Different plants have different bracha depending what it is that is giving off the scent. So the Gemara first quotes Rav Chizda and Rav, and some say as Rav Chizda and Rav Zeiri. Any of these scented objects, you all say the bracha bari atzei b'samim, who Hashem made trees with a good scent. Except for, what do you not say that on? Something called musk. Musk is a type of scented chemical that is derived from wild animals. So on that you say minei b'samim, very minei b'samim. That's like the shahakal of all the smell blessings. Yeah, minei b'samim, various different things that smell good. See where it says it's not true? I'll show you a brayso that says otherwise. There is a brayso that says the bracha of bari atzei b'samim, scented trees. That only applies to a fruit called afar simon. Afar simon is not to be confused with today's Israeli afar simon, which is persimmon. Afar simon was a very sought after, popular fruit which had an amazing smell, and its oil was highly valuable because it was used for perfumes. So the afar simon of Rebbe and the afar simon of the Caesar, those are two very wealthy individuals. Their afar simon was high quality. On that you could say atzei b'samim. Also on hadassim you could say atzei b'samim, because the actual tree itself in these plants smells good, not just something which grows on a tree, but the actual tree itself. The verse is a tiyufta, yeah. So this rejects what we said before. Now the Gemara wants to know what bracha do you say on the oil of afar simon. Afar simon oil, that was the perfumed oil. This is oil. What bracha do you say on an oil that smells good? So Rav Chizda asked Rav Yitzchak, what do you say? And he said, well, Rav Yehuda says the bracha, Beirei Shemen Artzenu, you created the oil of our land. So he said, okay, that's Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda has a great love for Eretz Yisrael. Every bracha he's going to say is going to involve Eretz Yisrael if he could. I want to know for everybody else, right? The rest of us who aren't so enamored with Eretz Yisrael apparently as Rav Yehuda is, what bracha would you say on it? So he said, Rabbi Yochanan said, you say the following, Beirei Shemen Arev, he who created good, sweet-smelling oils. That's still the bracha we say today. Now the Gemara wants to know what bracha do you say on kashrasa. Kashrasa is koisht, which is one of the spices of the kitoris. It's defined as kastos. So what bracha do you say on that? Rabbi Barava said, Beirei atzei b'samim, but that's only the actual plant. But an oil with that's made from that plant, you don't say that. That's a different bracha. Rav Chada said, no, even the oil you say that. However, if you grind it up, then you don't say that bracha on it. And in the Hardah they said, you know what? Even if you grind up the koisht plant, you still say the bracha of bari atzei b'samim. Now the Gemara moves on to the next type of scented object. Rav Gidl said, what do you say on jasmine? So jasmine, Rav Hai said is Bari atzei b'samim. Rav Chananel said something called chalfi dimo, which Rashi defines as the nard plant in the Ketairos, which is translated as spikenard. So Rav Chananel and Rav Hani said that is bari atzei b'samim. Now Mar Zutra said, how do you know? What's the proof? Because it says in the pasuk describing when Rachav hid the spies, v'yiha elosim ha'gaga She brought them up on the roof and hid them in the flax-like trees, the flax-like wood, which is haruches lalagag, which is spread out on her roof. Now this nerd plant, this chalfidima, looks like flax that we know, and here the pasuk describes flax as wood. So you see the correct bracha is atzei b'samim. Next thing the Gemara discusses is something called narkum de ganunisa. That narkum is, Rashi says, chavatzal sasharon, that's the rose of the plains area in Eretz Yisrael. So that's the ones that grow in a garden. So on that you say bari atzi b'samim, and the ones that grow in the wild, on that you say bari isvei b'samim. Isvei b'samim is the herbs that have a good smell. Now Rav Sheshes talks about something called sigli. It's a purple flower. Sigaliot, it's a flower. So on that, you say the bracha bari isvei b'samim. It doesn't have a wooden texture to it. It doesn't have a branch. You just say the bracha of he who created good-smelling herbs. Now Mazutra says, somebody wants to smell a fruit or a chavush. Chavush in modern Hebrew is guava. So you have these two fruits that smell good, or any other fruit for that matter that smells good. What bracha to say on good-smelling fruits? So he says the bracha is hanoisein reach toiv b'peiros, one who puts good smell into fruits. Now the Gemara takes a little detour and discusses Brachos Ilanos. Says Rav Yehuda, somebody who goes out in the days of Nisan and he sees trees that are in bloom, they got blossoms. So he says the bracha shaloi chisa b'lam klum, there's nothing lacking in his world. The barbai brias toivus v'ilanos toivus, he created good creations and good trees, the hisanos bohen b'nei adam, for people to enjoy. Now, says Rav Zotra bar Tuvia Merav, how do you know that there's a bracha in things that you smell? Who says you say a bracha on that? Well, the pasuk says, Kol neshama tahalolka, all souls should praise Hashem. What is the thing that souls enjoy from this world? That is good smells. You know what? The body also enjoys that. It gets pleasure out of that also. Now, the Gemara quotes some Agarate. Rav Zutra bar Tuvia says the name of Rav. In the future, young Jewish men, Bachurei Yisrael, will have a very good smell like Levanon, like the flowers and the leaves of Levanon. Like it says, Yechlu Yon Kaisev, Ayihi, Kizayis, Haidu, Vareach, Loi, Kalvanon. That's young lads will have the scent of Levanon. Now the Gemara quotes a number of other statements brought by Rav Zutra bar Tuvia in the name of Rav, which don't necessarily relate to the topic over here. First thing is that he says that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu made everybody a job that befits him and that he does well at. For example, the Gemara says Hashem put a soft type of wood on trees called kaira, and the pigs like it, and they come and they take it off and they drag it through the trash heaps. It's very important that that happen, and that's what they're good at, and that's what they do, so that's their job. Now, Rav Zotra bar Tuvia, the name of Rav, discusses walking alone at night. The problem is if you walk alone at night, you can be attacked by shadim. If you walk together with two people, you will see them, but they might not attack you. And if you walk in a group of three, then you won't even see them. They won't show themselves to you. So the Gemara says that there are other ways of accomplishing this. So, first of all, the Gemara says if he's carrying a torch that gives light, so even if he's alone, it counts as two people. And therefore, the shadim will only show themselves to him and they will not attack him. And if he's traveling alone but the moon's out, then he counts as three. So we're going to ask, when we say he counts as two and he counts as three, that's including him, so it's 2 and 3, or it's besides for him, so it's 3 and 4. So Gemara says, well, there's no point in having 4. 4, there's no difference between 3 and 4. So why would he say that? It must be that it's including him, and it counts as 2 if you have a torch and 3 if you have the moon. Now the Gemara quotes one final statement of Rav Zutra bar Rav Tuvia in the name of Rav. The Gemara has a number of other people who may have said it. The Gemara is very careful to make sure that we know who said this because it's a very big and important statement. So it was either him or it was Rav Chana bar Bizna in the name of Rabbi Shem Chasida, or it was possibly Rabbi Yechon in the name of Rabbi Shem ben Yochai. What's the statement? It is better for a person to have himself be thrown into a burning furnace and not embarrass his friend to the point that he turns white. Why? We learned that out from Tamar. Tamar was about to be burnt, and instead of embarrassing Yehuda and saying Yehuda's the one, and I have proof, Yehuda's the one who got me pregnant, and I have proof, she sent it to him, and she said if he chooses to admit, great. If not, better I should be burnt than embarrass him. Now the Gemara returns to the halachos of good smelling things that you say a bracha on. The Gemara wants to know, okay, which bracha do I say first? I say the bracha on good-smelling oil or good-smelling trees like hadassim. So specifically, the Gemara is asking at the end of a meal. They brought oil for a person to rub on his hands, and they brought hadassim to smell. So Beis Shammai says you should say the bracha on the oil first. Beis Hillel says you should say the bracha on the hadassim first. Comes like Rabbi Gamliel in the Brisa, and he says, I will decide between the two. The oil serves two functions. It has a good smell, and it helps us by anointing our hands. The hadas branch only serves one function, has a good smell. Better say the bracha on the thing that has two functions, which comes out that Rabbi Gamliel is agreeing with Beis Shammai. So Rabbi Yochanan says, well, the halacha is like that, like Rabbi Gamliel, like Beis Shammai. So where quotes a story, Rav Papa went to Rav Huna's house, Rav Huna, the son of Ravika, and they brought oil and hadassim. Rav Papa took, and he said the bracha on the hadas first. So they said to him, what are you doing? Don't you know that the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, and you should say the bracha on the oil first, because it has two functions. So he said, what do you mean? The Rava said that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. You don't go like Beis Shammai over Beis Hillel. The Gemara says it's not true. It's not true. Really, the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel here, and it's like Beis Shammai. And Rav Papa was just trying to get out of an embarrassing situation. Next, the Gemara asks if they brought a person at the end of his meal, they brought wine and oil. This is not wine of Brachos Mazon. This is wine at the end of the Suda, the dessert wine. So which one should you say bracha on first? So Beis Shammai again says you say the bracha on the oil first, therefore you hold the oil in your right hand and the wine in your left hand. And Beis Hillel says the opposite. Say the bracha on the wine first, and therefore you hold that in your right hand and the oil in your left hand. Now the Gemara says, now what do you do with this oil? You have to smell it. You can't just smell it by having it in the bottle. You gotta rub it somewhere. The Gemara says you rub it on the hair of the waiter. Let him be nice and perfumed. The Gemara says, but you can't have a Talmid Chacham have perfumed smells about him. It's not appropriate, as the Gemara will explain later. And therefore, if the waiter is a Talmid Chacham, you gotta rub it on the wall. You can't rub it on your own hands because the Talmid Chacham is not allowed to have this smell. Now the Gemara says that there are 6 things which is not appropriate for a Talmid Chacham to have or be doing, and the Gemara will explain each of them. First of all, it is inappropriate for a Talmid Chacham to go into the street with a perfumed smell. He also should not walk alone at night. He should not have patches on his shoes. He should not be seen speaking to women in the street. He should not sit together with a group of fools, of Ami Eretz, and he should not be the last one to walk into shul, and he should also not walk with 2 big steps, and he should also not walk straight up. He should be slightly hunched over. Now, each one of these I will explain one by one. He shouldn't be perfumed in the street. Why? Because that applies only in a place where people are suspect of engaging in homosexual behavior. We wouldn't want somebody to accuse him of that. Next, the Gemara says it only applies if he has the smell on his clothing. If he has the smell on his body, the scent on his body, it's not a problem because it's just to take off the body odor. Now the Gemara says, what about on his hair? Rav Papa says that counts like on his clothing, and therefore it's a problem. And some have a different version that say that's like the body because hair also has a scent, a smell, an odor, and you want to get rid of that too. Next, we said he shouldn't be walking alone at night. Why? Because people might suspect him of going to an unsavory place to do an unsavory deed. And that's only if he doesn't have a set place that he's going to, that he goes every night, and people will know where he is going. Because if he has a set place that he's going, people will say, oh, I know where he's going. He's going to Shir, he's going to Shul, whatever it is. Next, he shouldn't walk out with patches on his shoes. Where says that Pufter B'chia. B'chia says that Talmid Chacham, it's not befitting for him to have patches on his shoes. The Gemara says, well, what are you talking about? But B'chia Bar Abba himself said in the name of Mar Zutra, son of Rav Nachman, that you could have patches. So that's a patch upon a patch where you don't see the patches, or it is on the sole of the shoe. The sole of the shoe is okay. Only if it's in the top part of the shoe is it a problem because it's visible. And even in the top part, it's only a problem in the street, but in your house, you're allowed to wear it. And even in the street, it's only a problem during the winter. It's only a problem during the summer where it's visible, but during the winter when the streets are full of mud, your shoes will be covered with mud anyway, and nobody will be able to see that they're all patched up. It will not engender disrespect for Talmidei Chachamim. Now the Gemara says the next thing was that he shouldn't be discussing things with women. He shouldn't be speaking to women in the street. The Gemara says he shouldn't even talk to his own wife. or he shouldn't even talk to his daughter, shouldn't talk to his sister, shouldn't talk to any of his female relatives, because people don't know who his female relatives are, and he will look suspicious. He will look like he's talking to a strange woman. Next, we said he shouldn't sit together with a bunch of Amaratzim. What's the reason for that? You may end up getting drawn into their nonsense. He also shouldn't be the last one to walk into the Beis Medrash. He shouldn't come last for tefillah. That's because he's going to look like he's lazy. We don't want to tell Chacham to look like that. He also shouldn't walk with big steps, because the Gemara says it takes away 1/500th of his vision. It hurts his eyes. The Gemara says, how do you fix that? If you walked with big steps and it hurt your eyes, you fix it by staring into the Kiddush cup Friday night. He also shouldn't walk straight up. He should be somewhat hunched, because the Gemara says somebody who walks fully erect for 4 amas, it is like he's pushing the legs of the Shekhinah out of the way, because they are everywhere, as it says, Meloi Chalaretz Kivoidai.